Hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to Alpha TV. Yan, so we're back on a Friday and pailang episode na ba natin to? Ah, nakalimutan ko na kung pang ilan actually. But after we had this like 2 months rest, I guess third or fourth. Yan, so welcome back to another episode of Alpha TV. And by the way, no, meron tayong bagong host na show. It's called Kapihan with Sir Lex. It aired last Wednesday, no, with our pilot episode featuring engineer Mark Angelo Purio, part of the CubeSat project ng Philippines, the Maya 2. Yan. Just to give you a short recap of what we had in our um, Facebook channel no, sa Aslex Page Academy. And all the courses, yung mga free e-learning courses are still available. You can take them via aslexpage.com/courses and you can have a chance to learn at the same time get your e-certificates after completing the course. Ayan. So, but let's talk about tonight. No? Tonight, we will be having a special guest. No? Ayan, meron na agad nagtataas ng kamay. No? Nagpapabati ba sila? So tell your friends that we're still accepting guests inside our Zoom. We're at 25, no? And if you have friends who don't want to use Zoom as a platform, we are available sa ating YouTube channel. Just search Aslex Speech Academy and click on the live video being feed as of this moment. Now, okay, as mentioned, let's move to tonight's session. Let me give you an idea first who is our featured guest and resource speaker for tonight. Our speaker is actually a freelance learning consultant with over 30 years of experience. Imagine that, guys, in all aspects of learning and development. She is currently based in Toronto, Canada, and has worked with clients overseas in New York, Florida, USA, Prague, Czech Republic, Dubai, UAE, and Manila, Philippines. She has provided her expertise in different aspects of learning and development, from enterprise learning consulting, learning goals and needs identification, training strategy and curriculum design, ILT development and facilitation, e-learning design and storyboarding, assessment and certification program creation, to experiential programs conceptualization, development, and implementation. She has worked across various industries such as technology, telecommunications, land development, medical research, private medical services, training and management consultancy, national professional associations, real estate regulatory board, automotive manufacturing, commercial and retail banking, finance and investment, health and beauty products, retail, food services, courier services, and a startup social media company. She is proud to have built an exciting career based on her love of learning and teaching, just like what we do in here at Aztecs, and her creativity. On her free time, she bakes, refinishes furniture, writes children's books, and plays the ukulele. Without further ado, let me welcome on our show tonight, Alpha TV webinar, Miss Melanie Perez Casipe. Miss Mel?
Thank you.
Hi,
Thanks,
Miss.
Felix, for your introduction. Pardon me. And thank you for inviting me to your Alpha TV episode for this morning. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope to share some of my knowledge and experience with you today. So I'm
Ayan.
more excited than all of you are.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Mel, again for gracing your time, for waking a bit too early because sabi nga, pinag-uusapan namin before the airing of this episode, ilang oras ba yung difference? So basically 12 hours away. So that's 7 a.m. sa kay Miss Mel na time zone. Yan. Salamat po for waking a bit early today. Now, I don't want to stall the learning process to learn instructional design. By the way, we're covering today or tonight instructional design. And Miss Mel will walk us through doon sa what is instructional design, saan siya ginagamit, and some important concepts if you're really into instructional design. And maybe, bakit nga ba instructional design of all the topics, di ba? So, Miss Mel, you can share your screen now, and when you're ready, we can start. Yeah, by the way, habang nag-share si Miss Mel, no, naging teacher ko po siya sa isang course about instructional design recently. And then I asked her to share yan some of the things that I've learned from her during the session. And luckily we got her yes to do the session with us.
It's my pleasure. All right, I'm gonna start to share
Sure, Miss Mel.
my screen. Are
Ayan.
are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, Miss Mel. But we're looking into the Zoom. Yeah, yeah. We can see your screen now, Miss Mel. Anytime that you're ready, we can start.
Okay. So as Felix mentioned, so why instructional design? And again, thank you for that introduction, Felix. My specialization, I'm a freelance learning and development consultant, but I specialize in instructional design. So as Felix mentioned, why instructional design? So first of all, let's define it. What is instructional design? So it is sometimes referred to as ID for short. ID may also refer to the instructional designer, or ISD, instructional systems design or instructional systems designer. When you Google search the definition for instructional design, you will find many variations of this basic definition. I like this one. It is fundamental, it is straightforward. So, instructional design is the analysis of performance gaps and the systematic process of translating principles of learning into plans for instructional materials and activities. So, we should parse this and unpack this definition a little bit. So I used some icons to jog our memory what the definition is all about. It starts with a mental process of analysis, understanding the environment, understanding the problem or the opportunity, the situation. To understand the problem presented, we need to ask the big questions. What is happening? Why is it happening? Who is or are affected? How is it affecting the rest of the environment, be it the academia, be it corporate, industry, or social and the society in general, or relationships. So you ask the big questions to create your background information, your foundational information. And as mentioned there, it is the analysis of performance gaps. It could be the business isn't thriving as it used to be. It could be communication is in a downward trend. Perhaps customers are losing interest or being dissatisfied. Did I say communication between teams and that. So there's an issue, there's a problem, and you're analyzing the details about that problem or opportunity. Once you have your basic information, you want to start your systematic process. So I like that word inserted there in the process, because as engineers, perhaps many of you are engineers, I'm assuming. And if it's a process, you automatically think that there is a system, but not always, because there could be a random process, like drawing options from a hat. So this is systematic. There's a plan. There's a step-by-step procedure. And what do you do in that process? You translate principles and concepts of learning into your plan. So the product of an instructional designer is not a course, but the plan for creating that course, for designing materials and activities. Hopefully, then at our last icon, we reverse the downward trajectory of that initial problem that was brought to our attention. As I mentioned, business, behaviors, attitudes, and whatnot. So why should you learn about instructional design? So I have a little quip there. Outfit of the day is being covered by my Zoom. Let me just move this. So outfit of the day is out, and the mindset of the decade is in. So why should we learn about ID? Learning and education are eternal. As long as we keep having children and as long as we keep having the next generation, teaching and educating will always be a part of that life cycle. And so with that, the future needs more educators. And when I say educators, it could be in the academia, it could be in industry, in corporate, in social environment. So we're needed as educators. We have a place and a good place at that. Instructional design field is very broad and it offers a lot of opportunities, as we will talk about in a little while. We are all subject matter experts in our fields, and we need to teach what we acquire over the years. So I'm in a stage in my life where I start forgetting. So I want to share before I forget everything that I had experienced, before I forget everything that I had learned. I owe it to the next generation. That's why I'm here. I'm sharing in my experience for whatever it's worth to you. So ID or ISD is offered as a degree course in many universities in the Philippines and also worldwide. We also There are also short courses. In fact, I have an outline. I have a program that is being marketed by Mapua's continuing education arm. And as Felix mentioned, we actually met at a webinar that I conducted for the mentor group, a mentor group Asia, which is one of the leading training providers in the Philippines. The Philippine Training Society also offers many courses on instructional design. So this is why we should learn about instructional design. So before we dive into, okay, I want to learn about instructional design, let's discuss what do IDs do. So here I'm going to talk about what are some of the activities and some of the responsibilities of an instructional designer. And imagine yourself doing what you would like to do and perhaps identifying very early on if you'd like to be in this industry or in this field, what aspect of instructional design would you like to venture in? So there are many behind the scenes responsibilities in instructional design. Starts with building relationship, building knowledge. You have to do research. You have to, as mentioned in the process, in the definition, the process starts with analysis. So this is behind the scene, your preparation before you create your strategies. An instructional designer needs to have good business sense. And as you practice in this field, as you work with many different companies and industries, you will understand how the wheels of perhaps an automotive manufacturing company works. You will understand how an investment company works. the details and the details and the mechanics of that industry or of that business. This is important so you can identify where your opportunities may lie, where learning or development may be needed, and where potential issues or problems with the employees, with the people within that industry would come from. Behind the scene also, or perhaps not so much behind the scene now, is working with subject matter experts. As an instructional designer, you're not expected to know all the answers. That's why subject matter experts are assigned to work with you so that you can get to the meat and potatoes, or the core of the issue from the subject matter experts, and they're the ones that will tell you what the learner needs to take away, what they need to be able to do at the end of this training workshop, or at the end of whatever solution you'll create. Is the takeaway, what is the objective? So working with subject matter experts is challenging and exciting, because they are your lifeline to really getting a meaty course, to creating a really effective and meaningful course for your learners. So it's a good skill to have. Basically, an instructional designer helps others to solve problems. And perhaps you're in a training and development team. A business unit would come to you and tell you, "We're having this issue," and you start the conversation. You can ask the questions, because sometimes it's not a training solution that will answer that problem. So it's good to be able to listen to the cues that being shared with you, asking questions, summarizing, giving feedback, confirming. So these are all skills that are really important in instructional design. As with any other job, as content or knowledge workers, that goes without saying. And an instructional designer is a lifelong learner themselves. You keep learning what the new trends are in learning and development. What are the new tools that are available to you? What new concepts are available to you? And I should say this here now, that instructional design is not new. Since time immemorial, when parents are teaching their children their trade, or helping them to traverse the challenges of life in general. So that's teaching, that's instructional design. But as our learners mature, as our teachers also learn more skills, and as technology disrupts, I think you like using that word, disrupts the environment, we need to somehow keep up with even naming the things that we do, with the terminology, to also evolve with the times. Now, learning, as mentioned above, the above point is learning about tools, and about the learners themselves, how sophisticated they've become, how we can answer their learning needs. Here, the last point is really related to instructional developers. So that's the twin sibling of instructional design. They are developers. And you may find that you would like to specialize in instructional development rather than instructional design. This is the sibling that is more trendy, more fashionable, because you, as a developer, you are hands-on with the technology. You are learning about such things as LMSs, learning management systems, some development tools. You may have heard of Articulate, Captivate, Shift, Camtasia. So all these are tools, and there's many more. There's probably hundreds of tools. Microsoft has their own development tool, API. MOOCs, or this is like massive online content, and how do you present that to your learners so that they are not muddling through just a bunch of content online. So there's again a systematic process for designing those. You may want to specialize in graphics, because e-learning, as we know now, it needs to be um, uh, first attractive to the eyes before they can consume information. There's video, audio, gamification. AI now plays a role in learning. PLA, as I think it's predictive learning analytics. Virtual reality, we know that's being used in medical field, teaching our new doctors how to operate even without a live patient. Um, and virtual reality is also being used now in actually solving issues where an engineer or a technician is at the scene faced with a problem. They can fix the problem just using virtual reality, and they're being walked through the process in of solving the actual a problem real time. There's interactive PDF. So there's many more exciting technology in learning, and hopefully this is keeps your wheels turning. Now, what would you like to do? What area would you like to venture in? So what are some of the projects I've worked on? So in the yellow bubble, I've just listed a few of the actual methodologies of courses I've created. So in class or facilitated, there's a facilitator, it's in class. Um, and that used to be my favorite, because you can be very creative and really feel the pulse of the class, the energy. Um, People also now identify webinars as an in class. It's a virtual ILT. It's not the same, as there's a long piece of monologue before we actually get a chance to engage and discuss further. So that's people are learning, and educators are trying to understand this new method. I've used it 10 years ago, but it's still, it was just one-offs, and now it's becoming the new preferred methodology, understandably so because of the environment. I've conducted canned programs where, for example, DDI or Xerox, they have their own programs, and all you need to do is play a cassette tape or recording or a video, then stop it when you are um, uh, when there's a stop, and then you debrief the previous content, and then you turn the video again. This for companies, worldwide companies, international companies like Xerox, it is a protection that for their business, so that whether they take it to the Philippines or Japan or the States, the teaching is consistent, and the learners learn the same behaviors or the same best practices. Um, in So I created also a CD-ROM. This is the first CD-ROM. You probably be laughing or giggling now. This is an old technology, but way back in '98, this was the first CD-ROM course for a company I was working with, and I worked with a huge team. So the concept came from me, the designer. We had the designer. We had the owner of an in-class program that we converted into a CD-ROM. We had a video team, an audio team, a graphics team, and the platform, surprisingly, was Internet Explorer version 4. So using that IE4, we created a half an hour CD-ROM on time and self-management. So way back. I also create a lot of board games to engage learners, teaching about um, non-life insurance, teaching about logistics, manufacturing process, and the like. So my favorite used to be experiential learning, where in one of the companies I worked with, we rented a hangar, and that's where we had to set up our mini city. And we hired a Hollywood set designer and a set creator to create this mini city with complete with cafes, restaurants, libraries, and that's where we conducted the training program. E-learning as is becoming very popular now. 7 years ago, I've been singing this song to companies in the Philippines to start with e-learning. And the idea then was to have Canada develop, some of the developers here develop courses for the Philippines. But of course, that does not work, and it will not be financially be feasible for the organization, for the company. So I guess the better model is that we develop developers and designers in the Philippines and have them design and develop for Canadian companies. So that's always been our model anyway as exporters of labor. So why not technology as well? Self-study videos, webinars, and the like. So whatever training activity you may conjure up in the future, then you can just try that and see if that works. Again, reversing the downward trajectory of any problems or of any uh, performance issues. So some of the companies I worked for, there's manufacturing or some of the industries, manufacturing, marketing, and sales. So as you can see, there's a variety of positions. There's technical, there's marketing and sales, there's the corporate, there's internal customers and external customers. So very rich field for instructional design. Retail, I worked for at that time a 300-year-old company. It's the oldest company in Canada with 500 stores in 5 time zones and 70,000 employees. It was a really great experience there. And I started venturing into computer-based training. And also at the start, way back the late 80s, when e-learning was just starting. Finance, telecommunications, insurance, land developers, technology, and various organizations. If you want to learn more about my experience in specific industries, we can talk about that in the Q&A. So what jobs are available in the field of instructional design? So we asked the question for your self-evaluation or your introspection, what you want to do. Now you can ask where do you see yourself in what position in the organization or in the industry. An HR, a human resources, or an L&D generalist, administrator, coordinator, or an associate, works with a training department by doing the administrative work, registering participants, getting materials ready, lining up speakers, finding resources, ensuring that the training will be supported, and many more responsibilities, writing, communications, and most of the time this is your entry level position. This is where you get your foot in the door, and you grow from there. Once you've gained a few a couple years experience as a generalist, you can now move into a specialist position. I just recently attended a webinar where the it says about the future workforce. It's actually a specialist rather than a generalist. So whatever is your passion, have to build the skills around that, so that you can be competitive in the industry where you're playing. So the training specialist usually then is promoted to a manager or a vice president, where now is more relationship building, where is looking after your team, your training development team, making sure that you have business, or you have projects to work on, that the companies, you are solving the company's problems, and training and preparing your employees for succession or entry level. As the learning and development consultant, so this is like a normal um, career path. So after many managers and vice presidents in the training development, once they have perhaps maybe 10 years experience or 5 to 10 years experience, they venture to go on their own as an L&D consultant. And this is where you also apply what you've learned understanding the business into, now you broaden your horizon by understanding the whole industry, from top to bottom, from left to right. So it's a deep and also a wide application of your knowledge, and it takes you to many places at as what I have experienced, because now your skills at this point will be very marketable, as people don't always need one learning consultant or L&D consultant in their employ, but you can go in as a temporary worker or a temporary part of the team to really understand the situation, the environment, and assign those little projects to people that will be there more long term to the employees. You can now then specialize as an instructional designer, where you focus on the responsibilities we've talked about earlier, really focusing on the design, and then working with developers, or you yourself could be a developer. Many years ago, I would say 5 years or 10 years ago, companies that have a need of instructional designer would advertise in recruitment portals. They would say they need an instructional designer, but when they define the responsibilities, they're actually looking for a combination. So the twin sibling is combined into one. And it, I don't know if you will agree with me, but the designer and the developer, they have two distinct areas of expertise and responsibilities. It's like your left brain and your right brain. It's your artist and your architect and the contractor, or the writer and the actors in a play or in a movie. So but what's happening now is it's really promising, because companies, industries are understanding the difference, and they, when they say they're looking for an instructional designer, it's good to see that they've identified really the work and the contribution that an instructional designer can bring in to the organization. And when they say developer, they're really looking for someone to translate that training strategy and goal that has already been designed. Um, Now, LMS administrator is not you can have this role even in the specialist or in the entry level position. It is administering the learning management system of a company or a university, for that matter. And of course, at any time in your career, You can choose to become an instructor, a teacher, a professor, or a principal. If you are in the academia, it's it's a little different with the Department of Education, as the curriculum is designed or decided by a certain group of people, and it is then just transferred and assigned to the teachers that will teach them. So that's a different avenue of instructional design. Moving on, so that's the career side of instructional design. So if you are going to venture, if you think that you want to be an instructional designer or a professional in the training and development world, there are some concepts and models and principles that you need to know. We're just scratching the hairline of a tip of the iceberg, because there's so many even learning models out there. And I'm sharing with you this model that is known as ADDIE. This is the most commonly used um, instructional design model or learning model. And again, when you look at job postings, they may require a knowledge or experience in ADDIE. So what ADDIE just stands for, it's an acronym for analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. That's the full process of course development. Again, we start with the analysis, of course, where you sit down and create your foundational information, and then you design. Um, if indeed it is a training solution that's required, so you start designing your strategy. Once you've signed off on the strategy, you create your objectives. And then once that is signed off, you start really putting in the fleshing out your outline and creating your storyboard. And then you turn it over to the developer, or if you are fortunate enough to know and be proficient in the tools, you can also develop your own course, and then implement this solution and evaluate its effectiveness in the end. Within each phase, there are many tools and there are many models that you can use. And I would suggest you do a little research and just really look into it, like start poking around. The only a drawback with being a freelance learning consultant is I'm not able, I'll speak from my own experience, I'm not able to see the whole thing through. I usually end by developing the course, giving it to the client, and they're happy, and we part ways. The implementation is a phase that I very seldom see through, unless I have a long-term project that involves the implementation and evaluation piece. But I would say 95% of my work ends in development. So if you were one that would want to see the implementation and see the end of the process that you've created, as a consultant, what you can do is go back to your old clients after the implementation stage and just sit down with them for coffee and find out, what happened. Are they satisfied? What are some of the things that they would do different, and things like that, for your own education as well. So that's ADDIE for you. That is the instructional design model most commonly used: analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. Now, two things that we bring into the discussion when we're talking about instructional design is the difference between teaching children, which is pedagogy, the art and science of teaching children, and andragogy, which is teaching adults. So let's talk about teaching children first. So it's a science and an art, as mentioned earlier, and the teachers. Kudos to all the teachers for children, because they are. I see them as being very creative in making sure that the children are engaged. Um, as they know that learners, the children are dependent on the teachers for guidance, for content, for direction, for identifying, defining parameters where they can play and learn. With children, the motivation is known to be external. It could be to, of course, obey their parents, follow the teachers, please their teachers, keep up with the classmates, and not to be left behind in the class. So these are all external motivation, and they know they have to learn. They know they have to go through elementary education and that. Um, in pedagogy, it's a subject-centered learning. So you know from experience that like you have your maths, you have your sciences, you have your English, and that. So it's very subject-centered learning. Um, and then the readiness to learn is by age level. So we know that at age 7, as scientists have already identified way before, and educators have confirmed that at a certain age, that children are ready for the curriculum for a certain grade level. Uh, Perhaps changing a little bit because of the sophistication that the children are gaining through social media, through technology, through just even relationships in the home. Perhaps it's starting to be a little different, um, uh, a little bit modified. And also, when we adapt a different education level, such as the K to 12, which is fairly new and still, I think, 3 or 4 years old. So things like that will influence pedagogy from the traditional way that we've known it to be, and how we apply it to the times, to what is required now. In pedagogical teaching, the teacher has more power than the students, as they give them the grades. They have the power to say what assignments are due now, when exam time is scheduled. Even break times and recess times are set. So the children are really more dependent on the teachers. And most often the teachers are the subject matter experts. So we have a teacher in Filipino, and you ask them everything about the subject, and they know all the answers, or about like English or math, and they know all the answers. So going to andragogy now, teaching adults. Again, it is a science and an art. There are also models and principles surrounding andragogical teaching. Here, sorry, here it's a little different. Learners are a little bit more self-reliant, and they draw from their own experiences when they're learning. They sometimes even know more than the teachers. Learning is task-centered. It's problem-solving. It is more meaningful to the learner. And it has an intrinsic motivation to learn, to gain experience, to solve a problem, to achieve self actualization, perhaps go through the hierarchy of needs. First, they want to learn so that they can support themselves for survival, and then they move on to move up to self actualization. So they learn for the joy of learning and to improve themselves. The power is shared between the facilitator and the learner. At this point, the learners can even dictate um, what topics are they going to talk about today, perhaps even share with the class what they have learned. And most of the time, especially in class where facilitators are seen as consultants to the process and consultants to the experience, they the learners sometimes are subject matter experts as well, and they bring in their own past experience, as mentioned, and their own knowledge share with the team. So peer learning is very much a facet of andragogical teaching. One learning principle that we need to understand as educators is the adult learning principle. So, okay, so there's this art and science of teaching children, and there's an art and science for teaching adults. But how do adults really learn? So, this model was designed by David Cope, and in this model, and I am a proponent. I do believe this model, and you will also put your faith in this model. And once you do, your design, your learning activities, learning materials will reflect this model. Because so in this model, it is claimed that adults learn first by experiencing something, experiencing an event. And then from that experience, the adult needs time to process. Then here you ask the question. So it's a mental activity. What happened? Uh, why did it happen? And etc. So you ask the big questions from that experience. After that phase of processing, the adult learner now can generalize and create theories based on that experience. And once the adult has generalized and created theories, they can now use that theory the next time that that experience presents or a similar experience presents itself. An example that I gave before was perhaps failing in job interviews. When it's a one-time experience, it's a one-time event. Sometimes you just let it pass by. People don't overthink it. Oh, okay, that's fine. But if it's multiple times that has happened, failing in a job interview several times, the adult learner, the individual, now has this opportunity to process what happened there, what were the days, and the individual will find commonalities, will find a thread that's common to all the different times that they failed in the interview. Maybe it's in the morning, all my morning interviews fail. When I wear this outfit, it doesn't work. When the interviewer is female, it doesn't work. Or when the interviewer is male, I don't succeed in the interview. So they process this and think about what's really going on. And then they create their theories. Okay, now I know that when I go for interviews, I have to do what this and that. So whatever theories that they have formed. So the next time they go for an interview, they can apply those theories. They may not be correct, but it's an opportunity for them to apply those theories and see if that theory stands, if that is a generalization that they can use throughout their life. So in our children, perhaps the processing phase is something that we also need to start teaching them, so that they can, as adults, that they would be able to start processing the experience and form theories and principles that can guide them through life, so that they're more successful as adults when they grow up. So that's one principle that you need to understand, to practice, to read up on, and read up on some cases, um, to galvanize this information. So related to adult learners, the concept of learning styles. Here, the question for introspection is, which factor or factors influence you the most? So it's our, as learning specialists or learning scientists, identified four factors that influence learning styles: personality, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, a dominant person, a passive person, and the like. Information processing, whether you would prefer to see the big picture, or are you a step by step learner. Your social interaction preference as well, with others, is also a factor. And then the instruction, your instruction preference, whether you'd like to read or to listen or to watch or to try hands on. So, based on these four factors: personality, information processing, social interaction, and instruction preference, they've come up with specific learning styles. So perhaps in the Q&A also later you can share what your learning style might be. And here is the list of learning styles or preference. A visual learner would be very effective in when you use pictures and images in your learning materials. An oral person would like to have, sound or music, or have it playing in the background, as maybe some of us as students, we want some music in the background. It helps our brain to absorb more what we're learning. A verbal learner likes words, and sometimes when they write mnemonics or little rhymes to remember a process, or to remember concepts, they use, like little poetry. A physical learner learns with their hands and their touch, so they want to try it. Probably your siblings or your kids, if you have any now, they say, "Okay, let me try it." While you're explaining, they want to try. They don't want to listen to instruction. When you're putting together your IKEA furniture, there's the manual, and then maybe yourself or your partner would say, I don't need to read the instruction, show me the pictures, and I'll do it hands on. So it's a combination of, we don't learn just by one way, but it's a combination of preferences. People could be logical in their learning. They want to reason on things, and that's why for adults you start with what's in it for you, so that they can reason that there is a benefit to them. Step by step, also, and learning systems. A social learner would like to learn in teams or in groups, and a solitary learner wants to do more self-study, or like pre-work or reading or assignments, self or individual assignments. So this is important to understand. So when you design your training programs or your courses, you can consider the many activities that you can incorporate, so that you are really appealing to the different learning styles and the different learning preferences. It's not everybody would like, like hands-on. Some would like um, process or steps. So you still need to incorporate, those different activities and different ways of teaching. This is very closely related to the multiple intelligences. The way we acquire knowledge is also the way we express our knowledge. So it's closely related. The way we consume knowledge and information is perhaps the same way we would express our intelligence or the various multiple intelligences that we have. So, how can you prepare for jobs such as instructional designer or developer? Speak to professionals in the learning field. Download free authoring software, and been hounding Felix to have you tried it? Have you tried it? And if you don't have the time, watch YouTube videos on course design and development, and some courses that were designed in, as I've mentioned, in Articulate and Captivate and Camtation, and how those tools work with each other. And you will, early on, you will realize that you can't rely on one tool, that each a tool will complement the other for what they can do and bring out the best features of your e-learning. Practice developing e-learning courses once you've downloaded the free trial authoring software, and network with people who have the same interest and build your skills up. So I am finishing up with this this quote, very familiar to you engineers. So give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum in which to place it, and I shall move the world. So, as educators, this is what we want to do. We want to move the world. We want to move progress. We want to move the next generation by using this analogy. So perhaps in the Q&A, we can talk about, now I've named, or I've numbered the different areas in this illustration, and we can name them. So I think this is the fulcrum. This is the lever. Correct me if I'm wrong in the Q&A. And this is your uh, input force, and this world, and its movement, if we can nudge it a little bit, is the outward force. So why is this important to us? Because the different elements, the fulcrum, the lever, the input force, never mind the output energy or the output force, because that is the goal, our goal. So these three things, which one are we? Or are we one of these? Are we the fulcrum? Are we the lever? Are we the one giving the output, the input force? Or is it technology? Or is it learning principles that is giving the output? Sorry, I'm mixing my terminology. My input force, is it technology? Is it the process? It's up to you to decide, and there's no one right answer. The important thing is we use these elements so that we can move the world even one learner at a time. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, Miss Mel.
Hi.
Hi, thank you, Miss Mel, for sharing that great piece of material and sharing your experience, no po, and the expertise to our audience. We're now at 43 here at Zoom, and about 15 or 17 viewers at our YouTube channel. So most likely around 60 people learning simultaneously from your experience and expertise. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. I am humbled. Thank you. If
Ayan.
even if you can take away one thing that you have learned, something new that you have learned, or even one thing that you can take away and think about, then my work is done. So, are we open to
Yes,
Q&A?
yes, we are, Miss Mel, and definitely, of course, they will. They have learned, not just a thing, but many things about instructional design and learning in general. And fortunately, we have our first question coming in. This question is coming from Maki John Prince Santos from Zoom. Let me read the question for you, Miss Mel. Hi, ma'am. I'm a fifth year IE student, industrial engineering student. My question is, how can we measure factors that influences learning styles like personality types, information processing, social interaction? Sakto po kasi yung topic sa ginagawa naming research paper ngayon. Thank you.
Okay, great. So these factors for personality, unfortunately, I don't think there is an instrument, SI. I can't remember what it stands for, but it measures learning styles. Styles. So you can use many different instruments to identify the individual's learning style. That is because you're doing research, you can do that. But when you are in the workplace, it will be a combination. It will be a combination of your
Mhm.
exposure to these people, to your team, a combination of face-to-face experience with them, feedback from their managers and supervisors, understanding the also not included in that list is the generation, the generation where people are categorized as baby boomers or millennials or Gen X. They also have different ways of acquiring knowledge or learning styles. Personality styles, I think I mentioned there are many tests and instruments that you can use. But in your research, I hope you will find to conclude that there's no one learning style. So even myself, I would say, oh, I'm a visual, but there will be times when I would like to read something, or I'd say I'm an introvert person, but when it comes to learning, I'd like to mirror back with another person to bounce back ideas just to confirm what I've learned. So there's many things that you can use or many sources of information. And in the end, for good or bad, we can't, it's not like engineering where at the end you have an answer. Y X equals one. And if the answer is wrong, then your formula is incorrect. Your answer is incorrect, right? But the X and Y's we can play with, and the different variables in learning we can play with, and then your outcome will always be different, but productive, hopefully.
Thank you, Miss Mel, for answering that question. Just to share, here at Aztec Speech Academy for higher programs like the Lean Six Sigma Green Bull program that we're running, and I've shared this during our class during the mentor group masterclass with you, if you can still remember. We're using MBTI profiling questionnaires along with multiple intelligence, and
Mhm.
the other one is adult learning principles, adult learning styles. And we actually
Mhm.
added one more thing. It's called High Five Test. It's highly similar to the Gallup Strengths Finder. So a bit of that, and we try to integrate all of those on creating our programs or on deploying our learning program. So
Mhm.
to the one who asked this question, I think that's Maki. I hope that you can explore those. And I agree with Miss Mel that not no personality or learning type would fit to every scenario. Even when pertaining to one person. Or let's say for example for Miss Mel's case example and for my example or for my
Mhm.
case. Well, thank you, Miss Mel, for that very good answer for our first question.
You're
And we have
welcome.
another question again coming from Zoom. I think our YouTube participants are quite shy. So here it is from an anonymous attendee. I'm a third year IE student again from SPCBA. I just want to know how can we use pedagogy when entering the industry. So is there anything that you can share about how to use pedagogy on like fresh graduates entering the workforce?
Mhm. I was going to actually mention this that pedagogical teaching and andragogical teaching used to have a very wide divide. You could really identify how to teach children. There are tools and techniques, and then for teaching adults, there are also tools and techniques. But as I mentioned, when learners themselves start to become sophisticated and more exposed to the world and more exposed to various ways of acquiring knowledge, that divide is narrowing. So I'm glad that you plan to use pedagogical teaching in new hires because there are some elements to it that still applies. Of course, as a new hire, you would see them as being the children of the organization. They haven't learned how the organization works, how it's
Mm-hmm.
structured, who the people are. So you can have a straightforward teaching, a straightforward learning by identifying or giving them the information directly. There's no ifs and buts. This is how we work. These are the
Mm-hmm.
people who are you're going to work with. So that's pedagogical when you identified specifically what they need to take away. Andragogical is more now that when they have experienced and had the basic information down pat, they can move on to the next level of training by maybe mastering their skills. I was going to mention too. I think, Felix, I mentioned this at the webinar. Here in Canada and North America, there are also very mature workers still productively employed, gainfully employed. So in
Yes.
their 60s, in their 70s, they're still working. And what happens is they are adults, but now you go back to using pedagogical teaching, especially when it comes to using new apps, new technology, using the computer, using new methods, new ways of engaging customers. So that's why we always talk about pedagogical teaching, even in instructional design, because there will be times when you will need to apply those principles, and vice versa. When the students are more exposed and sophisticated, you can use andragogical and give them a little freedom instead of becoming the controller of the learning experience as the teacher.
That's actually a very insightful answer. I thought parang dati akala ko pag sinabing pedagogy parang very children as in yung bata talaga. So yung it could translate pala into something na whenever you're new into something, if I get it right po. Ano po, let's say
Yes,
yun nga po,
yeah,
new employee or a new group of people or segment of people or maybe a market segment na new to a certain product can still
yeah,
use tools and techniques under the pedagogy.
yeah.
Even they're
New
adults.
skills, new
Apo.
roles. Yep. Mhm.
Ayan. Thank you, Miss Mel. Now we have a question coming from the YouTube. Finally. So, excuse me. Let me read that for you. This is from Austin Shena. I'm an instructor at a university here in the Philippines, and right now, as we go about living in the new normal, how would we better capture the attention and engage the students more in an online class, which is a very, very relatable topic and question
Mhm.
today. And so let's hear it from Miss Mel.
Okay, so here's my 2 cents. As we learned earlier in the slide, I said that adults have an intrinsic motivation to learn. So
Mm.
whether to solve a problem, whether to learn a new task, to reach self-actualization. So as an instructor, I think the first thing you need to identify is for them is what's in it for you. What benefit will you gain from learning this piece of information? When it's meaningful to the learner, when it jives with their goal, then they will be engaged. So no amount of jazzy e-learning presentation or um, a fun activity or great material can compete with um, what's in it for you. So once you're able to answer that for each individual, then they will be engaged. They have no excuse for not learning because they told you. So at the beginning of perhaps the semester, you can have a pre semester survey just to get to know your learners, get to know your students, and understand what do they want to take away. And that's your pre-semester survey to understand the big picture. Now, every time you teach a topic, you can also start by asking, what do you want to take away? What do you want to learn from this topic? So, and then you tie it with your own learning objective. If you perhaps in the university you have more freedom to adapt or to change or to modify your curriculum. So, based on what they said that they want to take away, make sure that you cover those points, make sure that you're going to give them what they're looking for in the end, and let them know. So at the end of each course, you say, okay, you said you wanted to learn this, and I gave you that by this activity here, and we can attest that you did that because there's an assessment tied to it and you aced it, so you got it, you're happy. I did my job. So it's a tying in of a lot of little pieces.
Very well said. It's basically if I learned something from previous train the trainer classes, laging kasama yon, you should start with what's in it for me. As in the focusing or centering your material or your course, either it's a traditional or it's a an online course. It should always start with the user or your students, knowing what they can get from the program or from the course or from the session. And then, as mentioned by Miss Mel, evaluating whether these expectations or what's in it for them were met. So, yun yung parang ano niya that will close the loop or the feedback process. Thank you, Miss Mel. We're now at the last question maybe so that we can close the session. We're receiving good questions by the way tonight. So if there are questions or if there is a last question, we'll be waiting for about 5 seconds to be for that question to be raised. So habang naghihintay tayo, you can actually find Miss Mel sa LinkedIn. Tama, Miss Mel, no?
Yes, yep.
I think the name flashed on the right corner of your screen here at Zoom is your LinkedIn name, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it's just Melanie Casipe,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, Melanie Casipe. Yeah.
So you can search Miss Mel sa LinkedIn and connect with her. I think she will be glad to answer if you have questions
Yes, of course.
about
Anytime.
instructional design and learning in general.
Yes.
Ayan, meron pa pong pumasok, Miss Mel. Okay lang po ba?
Sure.
Sige po. Um, another question from a student. Just curious lang po, among the different learning styles, alin po doon yung naging effective po sa inyo? Just wanna hear something, some sharing po mula sa inyo.
My personality, being a little bit on the introvert side, believe it or not. Um, so, as an introvert, and at my age, a baby boomer, so I'm putting in all the factors that will influence me. Uh, with also my social interaction, I think it goes without saying that as an introvert, your social interaction is more of like better on a one-on-one. So for me, the learning that best is most effective for me is solitary. Um, so solitary, like self-study, my own research, reading, not so much the auditory, because auditory is an extrovert feature. If you would agree or disagree with me, once there is another entity in a room with you that is an extrovert, that there's something external, watching TV, that is external. So people think I'm an introvert, I just want to watch TV. That's actually extrovert, because you get your energy from an outside force,
Outside
from
source.
external. So those are the my learning styles. I think I'm more like a traditional. I prefer reading, watching videos, research on my own, and once in a while, if the need comes up that I need to confirm what I've learned, I will share it with a trusted colleague.
So there you have it. That's how Miss Mel learns based on her profile. Well, as mentioned, your profile or your learning style will be an integration of so many factors. If
Yes,
Miss Mel
yes.
is an introvert who wants to learn more of solitary, on the solitary mode, parang ako mas siguro kasi ako nasanay ako online from all the
Mm.
trainings and all hanggang master's degree online. Pero I love being with people, I mean in a training, collaborating with them. So talagang iba-iba. Iba-iba
Yes, yeah.
yung yes. So
It's a
yun,
combination. Yeah, there's just
yes.
different ingredients in a perfect dish, you know.
Yes.
So you
Agree.
consider that too with your learners. So when you create, as I mentioned earlier, when you create activities and materials, make sure
Yes.
that you are engaging the different
Different,
senses or the
yes, the
different
different
preferences.
learning styles and profiles. Yeah, and thank you,
Mhm.
Miss Mel, for answering that question. And I guess we're uh, medyo nag-extend na tayo ng oras and on this point, I would like to thank Miss Mel. Miss Mel, maraming maraming salamat po for gracing the event, for sharing your 1.5 hour of your precious time today for the preparation of the material, of course, sa ating mga learners dito sa Aztec Speech Academy. So Miss Mel, if you have something to promote or to invite our audience to your courses, please do so po.
Well, it's my pleasure. First of all, thank you for also spending the time with me. Thank you for the invitation. As I mentioned, I have a curriculum outline that is being marketed by Mapua in their continuing education arm, in their continuing education branch in Makati. So if you wish, you may inquire. It has not run yet, and the issue that we were having there was that I have to be physically in the Philippines to conduct that program, and we haven't identified how long the program is going to be. So an inquiry would probably give us more insight on what the our prospective learners need and what they would prefer. So just inquire and connect with me on LinkedIn. Ask anything. If you have, like someone said, you have research going on, just let me know if I can be of assistance.
Ayan.
That's
So,
all. Thank you.
yan. Thank you po ulit, Miss Mel. So, guys, I think we can let go of Miss Mel for now, and we'll go through some announcement and on how you can get your e-certificates. Miss Mel, by the way, Jojo is actually here. Jo, say hi.
Hi, Miss Mel. Good evening.
Hi. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you, ma'am. And I hope you're fine too. And
Yes, yes.
yes, I think it's very cold out there in Canada right now. Yes.
Getting there. Not yet.
All right.
Yeah. 11, 12, 15 degrees. So not too bad. Not yet. We haven't
It's like
reached the
we're already
zero.
in the air condition if we are going to experience that temperature. Anyway, thank you
Yeah.
very much for your time, Miss Mel, for sharing with
Thank
us
you.
your
Thanks,
Thank you, Miss
everyone.
knowledge, your
Mel.
Okay.
experiences
Bye.
about the ID. So, maraming salamat po till next time. Ayan. So,
Yes,
for our
sure.
viewers, Alpha viewers, maraming salamat for staying with us right now and for participating for our Alpha TV weekly, no? So, for few announcement, would like to announce for the following. Our attendance link will be posted after this announcement. So, the attendance link will be closed after 2 hours, and kindly like our page and subscribe to our channel, Ask Lex Page Academy. No, so for more webinars and free trainings. Okay. Also, we'd like to announce the next wave of Yellow Belt Certification Program on November 7 to 8, which is composed of e-learning plus Saturday live classes. So kindly go to our website www.asklexph.com to register, and also for our next wave of green belt certification program. So yan, paubos na yung slot, guys, no? So grab yours now. So we have e-learning plus Saturday and Sunday live classes. Also starting week, no, starting from November 7 and until December 8, I guess. Also, we are now accepting our first batch or pioneer batch for our certified Kaizen professionals. So this is a trademark program of Aslex PH Academy, as well as with the certified data analyst. No, so this is a very good program for those who aim to be in a continuous improvement loop. Yan. So just send us a PM and we'll just accommodate first 100 packs this year. Also, if you want to be the Alpha partner and Alpha ambassador, so kindly send us a PM from our page. And here you go. Here's your certificate link. No, kindly fill out the link below. Yan. And yun po. So, maraming salamat po for supporting Ask Lex Speech Academy and all of our programs. So, till next week, we have our Alpha TV next week. No? So, Sir Lex, ano ba ang ating pakulo next week?
Alpha TV next week. Parang ang hirap nun. hindi ko pa ata, hindi ko pa na-finalize yung sino
Ayan,
yung guest.
so stay
But
tuned, no? Stay tuned. But
stay tuned
apparently,
kasi
meron tayong from time to time na live sessions. Ayan.
yan. Links are, ay sorry, Jo, yung link ay, ayan.
Ayan.
Hindi pa ata nila nakita. So let me try. Ito,
Ayan
ito.
po, ayan. Nakapin na po sa YouTube
Ayan.
ang link. So kindly go to that link or kindly scan the QR code for your attendance. So that's all. Maraming salamat po for tuning in. And as we say, let's continue to become hashtag significantly better together. So that's
Together.
all. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time. Bye.
Bye!
Thank you, Miss Mel. Bye.